Hello, everybody. It's Fernando Labastida once again in another interview for the Martechify interview series. Just to remind you, Martechify is a connected learning community where marketing professionals can share ideas, best practices, and success stories to help stay current in today's really fast changing technology environment. Really happy to have here as a guest Brian Lambert. Brian Lambert is currently with a stealth startup, and he's working on AI technology for sales and marketing. He's going to tell us in the interview, but it's essentially going to help sales and marketing. And he's building out AI technology he's built out AI technology for other areas as well. And he has a PhD in what was it?
Yeah, organization management, and I studied sales the whole time. So thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I was just wondering if you could, for the audience, if you can tell us a little bit about your career trajectory. I think you got your start in the U.S. military and captain logistics training and maintenance officer at the Air Force. And then you worked as a salesperson at Dun & Bradstreet. How'd you go from there to working on AI technology for marketing and sales at a stealth startup? Walk us through that.
Yeah, well, I've always been curious. I've always been a massive problem solver, and I've also studied a lot about human nature at the intersection of technology and change. So the evolution of process, the evolution of skills, the evolution of technology led to a lot of different roles, primarily on the front lines of helping communicate value through conversations. And because I'm a proponent of salespeople and sales conversations, when I look and see what salespeople have to do to navigate change and enroll others, it became a real passion of mine to help them be successful. And that means equipping them with the right tools, skills, knowledge, etc., but really empowering them to be the voice of the company, and giving them what they need to do that is not easy. So that led into exploring avenues such as, well, do they have access to the right information? Do they have access to the right content? Do they have the product materials that they need? Do they have the skills that they want, that customers are demanding? And how do they show up, and how can I help them? And that led into exploring the impact of information and knowledge on salespeople. Most salespeople are equipped with a heavily product-biased knowledge and skill set, where buyers hate being sold to, and they don't necessarily want help on the technology when they're trying to figure things out. And then that led into, boy, there's a lot of different patterns in sales. Why are we treating all salespeople the same? And based on that, moved into a data and analytics company, which is kind of my roots. I started in sales at Dun & Bradstreet, which was an information and data sale, and then moved into kind of a big data, database management, understanding how data can be enabled in security and in marketing and in other areas like customer service, and then AI came along. So when I looked at what was happening with AI, it really became a capability. I saw it as a capability that companies would deploy, and that led to trying to understand what I call enterprise AI, which now a lot of companies are using enterprise AI as a difference between consumer AI, which is using chatbots. So I've always been passionate about that sales conversation and what do buyers really need from it. And because AI is such a rapidly evolving and advancing tool, just became natural that I would go there and explore that.
There's a lot to unpack there with everything you said. And, having, a background in sales myself, I completely understand that kind of dichotomy between, wanting to learn about the product, wanting to sell the product, and actually also having a sales process, whether it's solution selling or, the Sandler sales method or what have you. And then the customer just wanting to help to buy something. So, how is your approach helping salespeople to really be more customer-centric? I know that you're one of your areas of focus is being very customer-centric. How are you helping salespeople in that way with information and with the tools that they need?
Yeah, when you look at the evolution, I'm kind of a big picture guy, and I look at trends, and I kind of, put on my futurist hat. The way that salespeople have always won is being highly empathetic with the people that they're talking to.
Right.
In the SaaS world, that empathy really moved into deploying technology. So salespeople became really, really focused, and their company really forced them to be focused on deploying technology. So in other words, do the demo, deploy it, use it, use it, use it, drive consumption. And then we really didn't, as a business landscape, really was not a lot of discipline and understand that that's really only one pattern of buyer. A certain type of buyer shows up and says, give me a demo and let me figure out how to use it. There's a whole world of buyers and prospects that are in the space of, hey, I see this trend, I have no idea what to do about it. And that's really the traditional role of salespeople, to be more of an evangelical, if you will, somebody who's able to cast a vision and enroll others in it. And that's always been the role of salespeople. So when salespeople then moved into this space of, hey, I'm just going to demo, and do you want to buy something? Sure, that does drive consumption. But there's a whole world of enterprise accounts, consultative selling, value-based selling, which is really on the front end of the sales process, the quote-unquote top of the funnel. And when you look at top of the funnel, most SaaS companies believe the top of the funnel starts when somebody wants to buy. That's the buying process. But really, where salespeople spend all their time is in the problem-solving process of their buyers. And so that means they need to be equipped to understand what problems might exist in the buyer's world, and help them navigate something that they, as a buyer, truly do not understand, which means you need to think about it in terms of being consultative and value-added. And most salespeople have lost that skill set over time because, quite frankly, it's been beat out of them.
Yeah.
So that's I believe salespeople are a reflection of the ecosystem that they operate within. I believe, just like Deming said, if you put a great person in a bad system, the system wins every time.
Yeah.
When the system has been architected to show up and throw up and to demo the heck out of everything and assume that everything is a 10-day close and salespeople just need to transact, and you build a whole ecosystem around that, you end up leaving a lot of money on the table, which are larger deals that, they're slower. And yes, you lose a lot of visibility into when they're going to specifically close. But that's where I spend my time, is helping customers understand that salespeople's value add is not in that transaction. In fact, you're going to automate that at some point.
Yeah.
Really, it's in this idea of being a trusted advisor, back the way things were many years ago when I first started sales.
Yeah, I mean, what you're talking about, the system beating that empathetic problem-solving part out of salespeople, I see that in real time right now with my son, who's in his 20s, and he's working in the technology field in a inside sales position, lead generation position, where he basically has to go through a script, or he has to, go through this kind of like motion that the company has given him to qualify an account for, somebody who wants to see a demo. Somebody who's really ready to buy, and then he'll pass it on to an account executive. Whereas what you're talking about, I mean, it really kind of struck me that when your approach is having salespeople really help the prospects understand problems that they might not even know they have, which is almost them having the founder's mindset and almost them having a marketing mindset at the same time, right? So. And I know that you're really kind of living at the intersection of marketing and sales. And so is that kind of what you're talking about in a way?
Yeah, I call it the big difference, the big pivot from inside out bias to an outside in bias. So most organizations and companies that I talk to, especially if they're product led, absolutely. But even if they're in SaaS and they have a huge sales force and they still believe that the product sells, they actually orchestrate and instrument their whole system to be inside out. In other words, we have a feature, let's get it into the heads of our customers and make sure they know about it. That's an inside out bias. It's all about us. It's all about how we believe the value is there. Sure, we talk to customers and here's your answer. Here's feature release number 27. and it's way better than 26. So let's make sure that all the salespeople run around and tell everybody that, and let's make sure all of our events tell everybody that, and marketing tells everybody that. But if you're in a space where you're outside in, you ask, well, how is feature 26 actually going to help somebody be successful? And then try to meet them halfway. Or in today's world, it's really just meet them 5% of the way. I mean, any percent of the way is very differentiating right now. And by that, I mean you have to have empathy. And most sales organizations have lost sight of the fact that for us to close in a very consultative, complex platform sale, that's not just a transactional, add it to your shopping cart kind of motion, that you're dealing with, 5 to 10 stakeholders on the buyer side who somehow have to miraculously agree and also have the money and also believe in the vision that's being sold by the sales company. And so that means what I would call is an outside-in empathy. And organizations that build outside-in empathy, one example of that would be Amazon. They're often considered the least employee-friendly companies out there. And it's because, customers and prospects are pretty demanding, and they have a lot of challenges in navigating. And when you start mapping into that, it becomes uncomfortable to serve your customers in that way. And most employees are not equipped for that level of scrutiny and accountability from the buyer's side of the desk. It's just easier to say, hey, do you want to buy? And so that's a big tension in the world of AI, where AI requires more than the idea of a chatbot to executives. Executives are looking at it to build out whole entire workflows. There's going to be a lot of challenges and employees who are very isolated in their silos, inside out, nested into their comfort zone, doing the same things and are being so busy, doing busy things about inside out bias. So there's a huge day of reckoning coming for sales and marketing in that space, because marketing in itself has fragmented itself into 50 to 70 different pockets of marketing inside of a company. I mean, it's incredibly difficult to figure out who's in charge of what, even by the org chart, because of how digital and event marketing and field marketing and product marketing and account-based marketing, and we don't do that because we're
content
this kind
marketing.
of I don't do that because we're this kind of marketing. You got to go talk to that kind of marketing. And then you go talk to that kind of marketing, and they don't do that either. They do this other type of marketing. You have to go talk to the other type of. It's very confusing. Right. So that's an inside-out bias that's ripe for productivity improvement, but it requires moving beyond an org chart, which I tell people AI is really good at playing your customer, because both your customer and AI don't care about your org chart. And that's going to cause a lot of challenges for people, and they got to get over that and figure out how to add value, or they're going to end up out of a job. So there's a lot of that happening in the space right now. I can build decks, I can build outputs fast with AI as an external person, and that's really slow going on the inside of an organization, and that's probably because people realize that AI doesn't care about org charts, and also these tools have the ability to up level a lot of people, and you don't need as many of them because of these tools. So I think there's a slow adoption of AI. But on the positive side, AI has the ability to make people a lot more empathetic of their buyer. So instead of focusing inside out and how do I maintain my job, what if we all focus outside in on what's really happening on the buyer's side of the desk, and how do we get smarter about that? We will find that there's all kinds of opportunities to do very valuable work when we all focus on what's really happening in the prospect's mind. And AI can help us do that, but most organizations are not focused on that level of empathy.
So at your current company, this stealth startup, is that what you're working on? Is in that problem, or focusing AI on the problem of helping the sales and marketing departments get that outside in mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. We're in that space, and when you look at what AI is, I like to draw a line between before generative AI, so kind of BG AI, and then after generative AI, AG AI. And if you
Right.
draw a line there, before generative AI, it was all about, how do I build something? How do I share it with somebody else? How do I put it in a SharePoint or, Salesforce or enablement tool? And then how do we make sure salespeople use it?
Right.
In after generative AI, the ability to ask a question to an AI, all that goes away. You actually equip salespeople with curiosity and let
Right.
them figure out how to connect dots for buyers.
Right.
They're just going to ask for the help from the chatbot, and they don't really care about where that help comes from. So,
Right.
yes, organizations that realize that the outside in perspective is the world of buyers and where the money comes from, and that buyers have a lot of problems to navigate, whether it's risk or internal politics or process changes and change management issues, just to get a decision on anything, and then salespeople are in that world. The faster that organizations realize that they need to equip salespeople with dot connecting capabilities and synthesis capabilities, and free them up and empower them to have conversations, the faster they will move, and
Right.
be able to really get rid of so much internal content that is irrelevant. Most organizations realize that marketing creates content that salespeople don't use. Most enablement
The
teams
sales
create,
enablement content that is like the typical output of marketing.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
enablement teams will build that, and nobody takes it, nobody uses it, and everybody knows these things, but it's like the treadmill you can't get off of.
Right.
We must continue. That's our value add, is producing content. We must produce this content. And I think it's really important to hit the pause button on that and have a conversation with yourself about how long will that continue. Sure, you could ride that out for 5 years maybe, but at some
Yeah.
point the insanity is going to stop, and there's going to be a different type of value contribution required. And what
Right.
is that? And what if it's an outside-in empathetic? How do we use AI to close gaps to buyers instead
Right.
of close gaps to salespeople? What if salespeople actually don't need to be fixed? What if we just help buyers be successful,
Right.
and we stop the insanity of trying to fix salespeople and get them to do things? Because
Yeah.
if we flip that script and we go into marketing and decide we want to fix marketing, and we're going to tell marketing what to do, how's that going to work?
Yeah.
Why do we get that luxury to tell salespeople to go off and do stuff for us? So
Right.
that's going to rapidly evolve, because salespeople will vote with their time, and they'll vote with their attention. And if they're not paying attention and they're not consuming your stuff, they're already voting where their value is. And
Yeah.
so the smart marketing organizations will realize that their job is to feed the AI, not fix salespeople. And when you
Right.
start feeding the AI with the right type of content that allows salespeople to get what they need, you're in a different zip code of what it means to create value for customers. And
Yeah.
most organizations haven't realized that, because they're stuck in their siloed thinking with their siloed SaaS products and their siloed nesting and their siloed budgets, hoping that it all comes together with customers.
So how does that look like? I mean, first of all, I've worked with salespeople who are just so good at being empathetic. They're the ones who have the relationships, and they build relationships within an organization. They're entrenched in organizations. These are the enterprise salespeople who are able to keep on getting these organizations to buy more and more, hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars worth of software or whatever from these companies, because they know how to network within the company. And there are some salespeople who are just transaction oriented and absolutely cannot even do what they're doing. How can AI, how can using this sort of doing this sort of training, providing training content to AI in this area, how can the AI help these salespeople to
Yeah,
be more like?
you bring up great points. The first is one, where are salespeople having success, and what are they actually doing? Most salespeople that are having success are doing it in spite of their organization,
Right.
and they're having to actually choose to opt out of the help internally and do stuff on their own. And I've seen their decks, I've seen their content, I've seen their emails, I've seen their day to day, and it is nothing like what marketing thinks it is.
Yeah.
It is totally off the grid and totally shadow work. But salespeople know that they have to go to the trainings, they have to go to the meetings internal, they have to go to all the kickoffs and play that internal game. That buyers don't care about any of that stuff, so they're gonna now Rosetta Stone it into what buyers really care about. But you can't share any of that, because if you share any of that, you're going to get inspected. You're going to get told you're off the playbook. Marketing's going to get involved and tell you you're off brand. Product teams are going to tell you that that's not what we talk about. We have to say this noun in this very specific way. We can't use a different noun with the verb.
Yeah.
You know, it gets into this very compliance driven. You must comply. So that's the first thing, is realizing that this is happening. The second thing is to say, look, you know, if we were actually to take up all of the money that we're spending to help sales sell and figure out how much that is, and let's pretend it's $200,000 per year per rep. What if we actually gave that to each rep and said, here's 200 grand, how are you going to spend it? I guarantee you they're not going to spend it on more marketing content and more enablement content and more inspection. What would they spend it on? And I guarantee my hypothesis is that it would be on things that customers actually want and buyers and prospects actually need. And when you ask salespeople what that looks like, that's the space of AI, because AI can help provide recommendations. It can provide coaching advice to salespeople. AI could build if you're really getting into it, you could build a microsite that's specifically for an individual buyer that has custom content that's a map to where they are in their problem-solving process. Most companies believe that buyers are 99% down. You know, thanks to Gartner, buyers are 65% of the way down the funnel before they ever talk to a salesperson.
Right.
That's one particular pattern that's way over-rotated to, what about the 65% of the buyers who have no idea what problem to solve or how to go about getting started? And in the world of AI and the AI age, that's where most people are, is I have no idea what it is, and I have no idea where to get started. So pitching me I should implement and roll out agents is disconnected from my reality. And that's how we end up with this, what will be an AI agent hype bubble, because they're not mapping into, look, I'm a worker in sales, and I'm supposed to roll out agents? How does that work? No, that's IT's job to roll out an agent. Well, what's the agent going to do? Well, nobody knows, because they don't know what salespeople need, right? So it's this. So that's the challenge with sales in AI, but also the opportunity, and it has to do with this outside in. And I could go on through many more examples, such as account research, such as doing even the idea of discovery questions. Discovery questions for technical implementation versus discovery questions around, hey, you know, what's your strategy and what's your vision in your market? Understanding the healthcare industry versus the retail industry, and how does that affect different roles? I mean,
are all those things that AI can help salespeople with?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, like in terms of like giving them the questions to ask, or maybe giving them some prompts to kind of like leading questions. Are you experiencing this? So it sounds like as though they're an industry expert in healthcare or manufacturing.
Right. Yeah, I think most people are taught or believe, and I did too, that my job is as a human is to go to a chatbot interface and have it generate things for me. And you know, it's an output creator. AI is an output creator. But I learned very quickly, and I believe very, very strongly, that AI is really an input generator, not an output creator. So if you look at AI as an input, you can say, hey, what if we built custom applications that were really the CIO perspective? And we have a CIO bot.
Right.
And I want to bounce stuff off of a CIO bot and have them eviscerate me so I don't get eviscerated by my prospects.
Right.
When you have that CIO bot, well, what are you loading it with? Are you going to load it with all your product knowledge? You know,
No.
that
Okay.
doesn't sound like that's a good idea, because it's highly likely that the CIO that you're trying to interact with has spent zero time about your product, how you were founded, when you were created by your founders in a garage, the funding cycles, the Series A, the product releases. Those prospects have no idea that any of this exists. So we wouldn't load it with that, would we? We would probably load it with something else. Well, I wonder what we would load it with. Well, it might be things that CIOs are actually care about and that CIOs are actually working on. I wonder where we would get that. Well, it's highly unlikely that we would have enough empathy in our own organization to actually know what a CIO does. And if we have that empathy, it's bottled up in the heads of salespeople that are probably working with those CIOs regularly, or product teams that are interfacing with those CIOs regularly. Well, where are those people? Well, gee whiz, we're not even having any meetings with CIOs.
Yeah.
Nobody's
Yeah.
getting a meeting with a CIO except our CIO. I wonder what happens in those meetings, right? We don't know. So
Right.
there's a lot of opportunity here for us to do a lot of research with AI, to actually have AI load itself, so to speak, with the perspective of CIO, and actually role play with it, try to get a meeting with it. The sky is the limit when you look at it as an input source. And that is going to be an eye-opener for most companies, because when they start policing what that bot says, well, you know, that CIO, for example, I've had this conversation. The CIO shouldn't say it this way. They should use our language. That CIO bot should use our language to explain our products to us, because that's what. No, no, no. They should use their language, because
Yeah.
you don't exist to them.
Yes.
You know, you
It's so
literally
arrogant.
don't
Yeah.
exist. They literally don't care.
Yeah.
So why would they talk about you?
Yeah. I was working at a software company in sales a few years back, and I think this is one of the best training exercises we ever did. Was our sales director organized a meeting with our own CIO, right? And so we had a discussion with the CIO, and one of the things the CIO said was it just opened everybody's eyes, and it was actually kind of shocking. The CIO said, well, we want salespeople to kind of already know what we're going through, what we're worried about, what we're thinking about. It was almost like as though they wanted the salespeople to kind of read their minds and to already kind of be entering in the conversation in the CIO's head at the time. And what you're talking about is like, if only this type of approach with AI had existed back then when I was a sales rep, talking to our own CIO, that would have been fantastic.
Yeah, and first, yeah, absolutely. And today's buyer, that bar is so low because they get pounded all day long with, hey, do you want to buy from me? Do you want to buy from me? Thanks for connecting. Do you want to buy from me? If you even just equip salespeople that have 1% more empathy, they're going to probably get meetings. I'm not even talking about 50-50, meet buyers halfway. The bar is so extremely low that it's actually easy to get meetings if you actually have a perspective and a point of view about the people that you're reaching out to. And AI can help you do that and personalize it at scale. The other thing that I would say is when you look at how salespeople get this information and how they actually come across, the idea that salespeople are helping solve problems and they're actually exploring the buyer's reality in order to help navigate that reality, that's largely lost on most companies today. And they believe that that's the role of consulting. But the role of consulting to most companies is post-deployment. How do you use us?
Yeah.
So there's a huge gap in the idea of let's come up with a roadmap, or let's come up with a perspective here that helps you be successful, and then I'll tell you what our role is in that. And if you have a bot or a series of bots that help you role play that out, you're going to be a lot more equipped for those moments when somebody says, well, do you help with that? You know, that's what you want to be able to do.
Yeah. Well, and so getting to marketing, what is marketing's role in this whole process? Is marketing's role now to sort of to do the research and to get into the buyer's heads and feed the AI with this information? I think you kind of alluded to that earlier, but I didn't know if I
Yeah, I
heard you
think
correctly.
there's going to be a day where marketing moves away from creating 100% content for buyers, and they'll move into understanding that there is a content play, but because that content play is so saturated by everybody else, and there's a lot of content marketing, that the content marketing that really wins is content marketing in helping buyers make decisions, but more importantly, help them solve problems. And then
Right.
having that help that buyer, that prospect, actually have a use for that content inside their own company. So
Right.
not building assets to tell a buyer, building assets that prospect can use with their own people. That's going to be the role of content marketing, is to build
Yeah.
assets that I choose to bring inside my company as a prospect and use it with 10 people. And then from there, you end up with the space of content needs to be created, and emails need to be sent, and web pages need to be built, and press releases need to be created, and the 10K and the sustainability documentation, all of that. Well, all of that writing, where does it come from? Well, what if it came from AI tools that had been built with brand content, with product knowledge and content for the AI? If the AI was deployed internally and you dumped all of those things that you used to try to dump into the heads of salespeople or prospects, if you dumped it into an AI, and then you personalize and privatize that access to marketing and sales and analyst relations and other people in digital space and the website team, and you said, look, go there and have it build your tweets, go there and have it build your emails, go there, and now that source becomes important, right? Again, instead of having it housed in 27 different SaaS applications and SharePoint sites or Google sites, what if it was in one, and then that was the well we went to?
Yeah.
What would that look like? And then how would we organize our teams to realize that the first draft, that blank sheet of paper, that blank stare when we look at what are we going to type, that AI is way better and faster at that than any human is.
Yes, I found
So let's
that.
get over that and let's let AI do that first draft, and let's then focus on the second and third drafts as a human in that regard. And then, oh, by the way, when we're actually going to use something, let's put it back in the well.
Yeah.
Let's those things that we've spent 4 weeks approving, let's actually put them back in so they become a source content for us. So that way we're faster at this, and then we realize that these approvals will slowly become less and less rigid, and more importantly, they'll become faster, and we don't need so many
Yeah.
review cycles.
So it sounds like you're looking at sort of like almost like an enterprise-wide training content for marketing for the AI. Does this look like is this a data lake, or is this some kind of
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so the premise is that all of these content creators that are trying to fix salespeople and shove it into the heads of salespeople, what if you put it in a spot? I call it a speed layer. What if you had a marketing and sales speed layer? And I talk about this in my new book called The AI Lead. And these
okay?
speed layers are technological, they're technical, but they're also built in the business to serve content that can be used in these types of assets and in these
Right.
experiences. Because we're not even talking about events yet, but if you were able to build customer workshops and you were able to build all these other things that customers actually experienced instead of getting sent to them, you could actually build a speed layer that creates these types of experiences. And the speed layer is built on data and information from your internal organization and uses AI and machine learning to create those assets, visualizations, and experiences. And that's what I mean by taking the AI lead and what is enterprise AI. And I think a lot of people don't realize there's a big difference between consumer AI and enterprise AI. And I believe that AI will come inside of your organization, and it will not just be embedded in 27 different applications, that it will actually become a workflow and a capability that your executives believe is core to the intellectual property and also competitive advantage of your organization. And
Yeah.
that is really the foundation of what I call the speed layer. And that means you have to understand your value add as a company and then get that data in there. So that's what the book is about. It actually became a bestseller last week after 10 days out on Amazon bestseller. And I think this idea of enterprise AI is really going to take off over the next few years.
Yeah. The book is available on Amazon, right?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. You can also find it at my website, aileadbook.com. And yeah, I'm having a lot of discussions, events, webinars around it to think about this foundational component of overcoming what I call data drag. You have to understand where your data and information is, and then build that empathetic organization and empathetic team, what that looks like, and then deploy a speed layer to overcome that data drag. And that book helps you. It has 20 different tools. It has 35 to 40 different examples of how speed layers have been deployed. And it really is that link between the business, that outside-in business, marketing and sales, product lens, with the internal technology and CIO, machine learning, ML ops lens of how we're going to do this.
Would you mind sharing one of the examples from the book about a company that has built a speed layer to kind of overcome that data lag?
Yeah. The one example is in the pharmaceutical space. Just bringing drugs to market. There's so much regulation and there's so much focus on making sure that you have the clinical trials and that you have all the data. The way that a drug company makes its money is in getting that drug through the process and then monetizing after the back end. Forecasting what that is going to look like. How do we get the money and revenue from that drug in the market? So you really want to decrease that not only research time and the clinical trials time. You can only do so much. It has to be ethical and it has to work and all that. But then there's all of the paperwork approval process of getting all that through. And if you deploy a speed layer to help with that approval process and managing that, you can decrease the approval process paperwork side, not the research side, but you can decrease the paperwork process and get your drug to market faster. So that's an example of a speed layer being deployed to actually bring drugs to market faster, understanding all the regulations and all that. Another example is in patent law, patents.
Right.
A lot of research has to happen with patent attorneys. What if you deploy a speed layer that looks at all of the patents and all those visuals and all of that language, and you can actually search for those patents faster and instead of spending weeks doing research, you could do it in seconds to do the first batch of research. That's a speed layer that uses machine learning and AI to bring back the right type of content based on what is really search. And the ability to search for these things used to be keywords, but now it's way more advanced in how you retrieve information, and the speed layer helps you do that. So that's two examples there.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could kind of describe the mechanics of how a speed layer works. If you were kind of like to maybe paint a mental picture of a flow diagram or something about a speed layer.
Yeah, just quickly, you can think of it as the concept of there are data producers. So most organizations have data being produced in a variety of different human and technical sources. So a software application can be a data producer. So can be a hardware can be producing logs and traces and telemetry. A drone can be producing content, right? So data. So anything that's a data producer, what are those data producers? Who are those data producers? And then do we have access to the data being produced, and where is it? So understanding that data, where it originates, and then the flow piece is how do you ingest it, how do you organize it, how do you get it into a spot where it can be orchestrated and instrumented, how do you prioritize it, deprioritize it, how do you keep it safe and secure? That's half of the speed layer. And then usually companies are putting machine learning and observability and security tools on that to make sure that it's protected. But you got to figure out what's in the speed layer and what's out. That's why this idea is important. You can't put everything in. It's not, one, it's not useful, and two, it's expensive to put everything in. But that's where you have to have a strategy. So the first half is that ingesting and then organizing and schema and all that. Then there's a handoff, if you will, to the generative component, which is we're using that information and data that we've ingested and we've organized and we've protected. Now we're going to put a generative capability on there. And that generative capability, many people think it's just OpenAI and a chatbot. But really, it's way, way more than that. You may have heard of agents. You may have heard of workflows and automation and things like that. That's the space of taking that content and information that you've ingested, creating and doing things with it so that it can be handed off to a data consumer. So the bookends here are data producers and then data consumers. Data consumers can be humans, customers, and prospects, but it also could be other agents, if you will, that consume that. So it's really the foundational framework and tools and technologies, because there's a lot of technology in there, handing things off and doing things and protecting and looking for threats, and there's a lot of tech involved. And that concept, though, is the foundation of the agent workflow, agentic workflows, and it's also the concept of building what I would consider more of a digital enterprise, because what I just mentioned cuts across silos. And so when you look at data producers and data consumers and getting every drop of value out of your data, there's a lot of data drag, because data drag is siloed, fragmented data. You don't even know where your data is. It's somewhere, and then we can't, with no data, no AI. I tell people that, no data, no AI. AI is built on data. Find a friend in your data organization and beef up your data side, because you cannot do enterprise AI without that data. So you have to digitize, and then you have to have digital processes and automations going, and that's all in the book, right? So it's a big book. It's not a skinny book. The first half is business strategy, where I outline the problem with data drag. I talk about ethical AI. I talk about sustainable AI. I talk about safety in AI, governance of data, why data, who data, when data, right, all that. And then it goes into the technical side, which is what is a speed layer? How do you design and deploy a speed layer? What are the requirements of a speed layer? And all of this is designed to bring the business side with the tech side. And I think I was in for many years believing that technical builds were for technical people like coders. I didn't have to worry about any of that. Data is for data people. I don't have to worry about data. But really what we're seeing with this AI world that we're starting to live in, that you have to be comfortable with data and you have to be comfortable with some sort of foundational tech here. You can't not do that anymore. You can't
exactly.
Just say it's
There's
for
no
the tech
way.
people.
There's no way that you can afford to live comfortably as a Luddite. You're going to have to get into, knowing something about technology and data.
That's why the book has a 16-page glossary. It's for the business people like me that had to figure out how to have a conversation with a developer. Like I was just on a call today, and I'm basically building speed layers, and I can talk to a development team, and I can give them direction and give them requirements, because I understand what we're building from a business perspective, and I have a little bit of technical language, and that's important, I think, for marketers and for salespeople, because what we're going to be doing is changing how companies work. If we do our job right as marketers and salespeople, prospects will change how they work. If they're changing how they work in an AI age, that means that they're working completely differently than how we used to work.
So this is we're coming to almost the end of the conversation, but I'm really curious as to how the data from this enterprise AI, the speed layer, is then delivered to the end users in these 52 different or 26 different siloed departments within marketing. Is it through their CRM? Is it through their automation system? Is it through their their SEO tools? Is it through I don't know. I mean, is is it deployed through there, or is it a completely different interface? Is it like an internal website, an intranet where they have access to this? How are they getting access to this information?
Yeah, well, this is why Satya Nadella from Microsoft said that SaaS products are dead. And this is why others at like OpenAI have talked about agents becoming new operating systems. We're really talking about a completely different possibility here of moving beyond a fragmented view of data and a fragmented view of our customers. And so what that means, if I wave my magic wand, and I don't know how long this is going to take. Some people are going to take the long game here and say this isn't going to happen for 20 years. I'm okay. I'm going to be retired by then. But I got to tell you, the time compression on this is massive, massive. I mean, look at what's already happened in 2 years since generative AI came out.
Yeah.
And for guys like you and me that probably remember cassette tapes and video recorders that use tape, I mean, the compression here is massive. So you can take the long game and believe that this isn't going to affect you, but I guarantee you that's going to be short-sighted. I think it will affect you, and the way it's going to affect you is, one, companies that have SaaS products and sell SaaS products are going to have to realize that their chatbot as a feature is going to be replaced by something else, because nobody wants to be in 27 chatbots that say 27 different things. It's just dumb. Sure, you can go with Microsoft Copilot and all those. Those are great tools for foundational task work, but it requires you to be in those tools, and most people that are in these roles are not in those tools 24/7. They're in a lot of other SaaS tools. So all of those other SaaS tools either have to start hooking into something like a speed layer or many speed layers, which I think the future SaaS companies will replace their fledgling little bots that are irrelevant in 2 years because they all sound the same. They will be replaced with different data sources. Employees will soon realize that it's important to ask where the chat's coming from and what the chat source is. And if the companies that are going to be successful will hook into what is really this speed layer and many different speed layers in a central spot, for example, a sales and marketing repository that has this. And then from there, you'll see a lot of different interfaces pop up that are hooking into that same type of concept that are actually going to be more customer facing. So you're starting to see things like sales rooms, tailored websites that are just for specific buyers that are built on the fly. These things are all going to be built on that same repository of data that many speed layers are pumping full, and also they will be outside of those traditional SaaS apps.
Yeah, and so are these the new, more empathetic sales reps, getting back to that kind of consultative sales, will they be able to put together themselves a personalized website for their client using these enterprise AI tools?
Yep, and they won't be going to training because the training will always be on, because when you log in the morning, it's going to give you recommendations, it's going to give you nudges, and you're going to be able to ask your internal helper for help with the problems you have. Like, hey, how do I get started today? I'm really confused on how to manage my day. And it's going to give you advice, and then you're going to be like, well, bot friend, I was thinking about, I need to get in front of this CIO, and it's going to be like, well, here's 27 ideas for doing that. Which one would you like? Well, I really like number 12. Okay, let me help you do number 12. Here's your website. What do you think? Right? Like it's going to be a collaborator, and the marketing and sales leaders that recognize that it's about equipping that conversation outside in. And that the way we build these speed layers is our competitive advantage. They're going to start piloting, right? You've got to pilot this out. You can't just rip and replace. But most sales and marketing teams don't work collaboratively. It's a real problem. So they're going to have to be intentional about pulling us in, for example, and saying, hey, let's build a speed layer around this, and let's see if we can even get it working. Because there's going to be two major problems that companies face in the AI world. Problem number one is they don't have the data to run AI. So no data, no AI. When they start getting the data under their purview and starting governing the data and managing the data like we're talking about, the second issue will be the people. People and data are the reason why 80% of transformations fail. Data can be hopefully fixed, but what's going to happen is there's a lot of gaps. So AI is actually going to help fill in a lot of those gaps with what's called synthetic data. But the number two issue will be the people side. And there's going to be a big challenge for people to work in this way. And that's why I'm very passionate about what I call purple collar work, which is the blend of technical and creativity. Giving people the digital literacy to realize what's happening here, and these technical things that we're talking about here. I have courses on it at Digital Command, my project that I'm working on to really elevate the purple collar worker to be comfortable having these conversations. And I believe that that's the future, and that we're in the first AI age. I believe that it's strongly, very, very important for anybody listening to this to realize that the industrial age is over. We are not in the industrial age more. We can't call it the fourth industrial age anymore. We are in the first AI age. The entire way in which organizations and people will work 10 years from now will be different. You will have AI bots as team members. You will have AI creating the first drafts for you. You have to elevate your role to be a quality, synthesizer, orchestrator of these AI, and you'll have to be an AI manager.
And it's almost like as though, and I've heard various versions of this, but you're going to see one person unicorns because they're launching companies staffed by agentic agents by themselves. I think, Mark Zuckerberg said you're going to see a 10-person unicorn, and I've heard people say you're going to see a 1-person unicorn because they're going to be working with a team of AI agents.
I think there's a journey that people need to go through to understand that. I documented my journey in my book, The AI Lead, and that's why it's so big. I started with what is data, and I go all the way through to what we're talking about now.
I need to get the book.
I did that soul searching for 4 years and trying before generative AI even hit. When it hit, I was like, okay, I really have to accelerate this concept here because I believe that as people need to realize that they have to elevate and they have to really rethink their role, and there's going to be a lot of soul searching, and I want to help people get through that faster to see all the possibilities here. For every job that gets taken away, there'll be new ones created. You have to have this foundational understanding of how things will work, and that's why I think the book is a bestseller. It has so many 5-star reviews on Amazon, and companies are starting to have meetings around how do we deploy speed layers. And I think that's a good first step here, is to get the foundation right here this year. We've got to have these foundational conversations.
So I love the blue collar concept. I've been talking to actually a couple of people.
Purple collar? Yeah.
But now I have a name to describe a phenomenon I've been seeing, which is either engineers getting into marketing or marketers who are just very technical and have to be conversant in all areas. It's the purple collar. We're purple collar workers, and I kind of consider myself purple collar.
Check it out at digitalcommand.co and purplecollar.pro.
Digitalcommand.co and purplecollar.pro.
That's right.
And then what's the website for your book?
AIleadbook.com.
AIleadbook.com. And actually, we jumped to what I was going to ask you was what are the best ways for people to get a hold of you? Obviously through your LinkedIn, right? Brian Lambert on LinkedIn, and so it's purplecollar.pro. It's command.
Digitalcommand.co.
Digitalcommand.co and AIleadbook.com. And then, of course, the stealth startup that you're working at right now, whose name will be revealed at some point in time, right?
That's right. Yes.
Okay.
I'm very excited about that. I think we're breaking new ground with laying the foundation. And if anybody wants to talk about the future, but also the reality of today, how do we start? Where do we start? How do we prototype? What do we prototype? I'm having those conversations all day right now, and I think those conversations need to happen. So I do have webinars. There's some webinars at Digital Command you can go to. There's a lot of blogs. Obviously, get the book. I'd love to hear from you about that, and drop a review if you can. And also, I will say, I'll give a little plug. Every Friday at noon, I have a live show, and that's at brianlambert.live. So tune into the show.
brianlambert.live. Okay, there's a lot of websites that you have to manage.
Yeah.
Well,
I
very
have
cool,
AI
Brian.
helping me.
Yeah, AI helping you, exactly. So, Brian, I really appreciate your time that you spent with us today. This is This is fascinating. This is. I'm going to get into. I'm going to get your book, The AI Lead, and everybody should as well. And we will see everybody in a next episode of Martechify. Hopefully, we'll have as stimulating a conversation as we had this time. But I don't know if anybody could top this, Brian.
Oh, I don't know. I'm sure they can. I really appreciate the time, and I look forward to many more conversations with you and your viewers and listeners. So thanks so much for the time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
All right, take care.